salt air, gulls, the low thud of waves under the boardwalk. Evelyn Cruz guided her carbon fiber chair along the weathered planks, boots tucked neatly on the footplate, a service dog named Atlas padding beside her. She wore a navy cap, sun-faded and bent at the brim, and the quiet, heavy calm of someone who's seen the worst and decided to keep moving anyway. Sophia, the coffee cart barista with paint on her fingers, smiled. Same as always, Ev. Cinnamon latte. Not too sweet. Make it a little sweet, Evelyn said. It's one of those days. One of those days. That's when the bikes rolled in, chrome teeth flashing, mufflers growling. 6 of them. Leather jackets. Loud jokes that didn't land. The leader had a skull patch and a jaw like a cinder block. John Razor. Someone in the crowd whispered. His buddy wore a sleeveless denim vest stretched over a chest like a barrel. Michael Tank. They parked sideways, blocking the boardwalk like they owned the ocean. Razor spotted the navy cap. Nice hat. He smirked. Halloween early? Tank barked a laugh. Where's the rest of the costume, Captain America? Evelyn kept her hands on her rims. Quiet. Atlas angled slightly forward, reading her breath. Sophia stood a little straighter. She's a veteran. Show some respect. Razor's eyes traveled over the chair. Yeah? Combat of what video games? A murmur moved through onlookers. Emma, a teen with a yellow skateboard. Robert, the pier's maintenance manager with a careful jaw and oil under his nails. And old Mr. Delgado, who came every morning to feed the gulls and fold yesterday's newspaper again and again. Evelyn didn't blink. Walk away. Please. Walk. Tank smirked. Bad choice of words. Laughter, thin and mean. Silence. Waves hit the pilings. Atlas's ear twitched. Razor nudged the dog with his boot. So what's the mutt do? Pull you around like a wagon? He alerts, Evelyn said softly. And he's braver than you. Big talk. Razor reached for the harness strap. Atlas didn't growl. He leaned into Evelyn's knee, waiting for her cue. She didn't give one. Inside her, a desert wind rose. Heat on armor, copper in the mouth, the memory of a dust-colored sunset she once watched through cracked goggles. She tasted grit, heard the helicopter blades, felt an old ache bloom behind her sternum. Sophia's voice trembled. Hey, leave her alone. Robert stepped to the edge of the scene, hands open, eyes scanning for exits like a man who's replayed a fight he never wanted to have. Emma lifted her phone, then lowered it, unsure. Would you have filmed or stepped in? You're going to apologize, Evelyn said, breath steady. To me, to the flag stitched on this cap. And then you'll clear the boardwalk. Razor's smile thinned. Or what? Evelyn's palms warmed on the rims. Or you'll learn that some people don't need to stand their ground. He grabbed the harness. Atlas froze. The pier went quiet enough to hear a gull drop a shell. Sophia's thumb hovered over a contact with a single word. Seals. And she pressed, call. Sophia's call rang out into wind. Mick? It's me. The pier. We've got a situation. On the other end, Michael Mick Torres, former Navy SEAL, calm even when the world tilted, caught the note in her voice. How many? 6, she whispered. Leader calls himself Razor. They're crowding Ev. Mick didn't ask who Ev was. He already knew. Evelyn had once taught his community clinic how to tourniquet with one hand. He'd watched her show a 7th grader how to steady their breath when panic tried to steal it. 20, Mick said. That's all I need. He hung up. He moved. Across town, a group text lit up. John Kim, lean and quiet. Emma Hale, yes, that Emma. A medtech who shared a name with her grandma. Robert Hale, the same Robert from the pier, who looked down at his buzzing phone and then up at Razor like he'd been expecting this page since sunrise. Robert slid the phone into his pocket. If help was coming, he had to buy time. Fellas, he said, voice steady. Let's not ruin everyone's morning. Tank tilted his head. You a cop? Fix light bulbs, Robert said. And broken boards. And days like this. Razor tugged the harness again. Atlas stood, muscles corded but still. Evelyn lifted a hand, palm down. Easy, boy. She looked at Razor. I'm asking you one last time. Let go. Razor leaned in until she could smell gasoline and cheap mint. Make me. Silence. The kind that hums before a storm. Evelyn's tone changed. It wasn't loud. It was trained. Atlas. Block. The dog stepped sideways, putting his body between Razor's boot and Evelyn's footplate. Slow, clean movement. Rehearsed. It startled Razor just enough for the strap to slip from his fingers. Cute trick, he sneered, covering the flinch. Got any more? Evelyn didn't answer. She scanned her angles. She saw Sophia's shaking hands, Emma's half-raised phone, Mr. Delgado's paper creasing. She measured the space between planks, the angle of sunlight off chrome. The way Tank kept shifting his weight to his heels, not his toes. You can tell who's ready by their feet. Did you know that? Tank stepped forward, bumping the footplate. Oops. Atlas didn't move. Evelyn locked her wheels with a soft click. Robert cleared his throat. You know what happens when you push someone who won't tip? You fall. Razor smirked. Is that a threat? It's physics. Sophia whispered. 11 minutes. Razor raised his voice so the crowd could hear. We got us a war hero who thinks she's untouchable. Evelyn met his gaze. No one's untouchable. That's why we take care. He blinked, thrown by the line. A siren wailed in the distance, then faded. Not for them. Emma, the skateboarder, finally lifted her phone. You're on camera, she said, voice high but firm. Millions will see you. Razor laughed. Good. Maybe I'll sign autographs. The wind shifted. A new sound. Not bikes. Not sirens. Engines low and even. SUVs. They turned into the lot like pieces sliding into a puzzle. Doors opened. Boots on pavement. Measured, unhurried, impossible to mistake if you've ever heard that cadence. Time from Sophia's call. 1937. A man in a gray ball cap stepped forward, trident pin catching sunlight. He looked at Razor like a tide looks at a sandcastle. Morning, Mick said. Mind if we borrow a minute? Mick's voice wasn't loud. It carried. John Kim flanked him. Eyes soft, posture loose, palms visible. Emma Hale moved to Evelyn's side and crouched so she met her at eye level. You okay, ma'am? She asked. Evelyn nodded once. I'm fine. Emma glanced at Atlas. Beautiful form, she whispered, as if complimenting a dancer. Atlas wagged once, then stilled. Razor snorted. What is this, a reunion tour? Mick smiled like someone who enjoys a good cinnamon roll and a quiet morning. We're neighbors, he said, and we're interrupting. Tank rolled his shoulders. You gonna make us move? Mick's eyes flicked to the harness strap, to the scuffed footplate, to the tightness in Sophia's jaw. He saw it all. No, he said. We're going to help you decide. John Kim stepped closer to Razor's line of sight and set a bright orange chalk line on the planks. He spoke to the crowd, not the bullies. Quick lesson, he said. Balance and choice. He pointed to one side of the line. Respect. The other. Regret. Cute, Razor said. Fun part, John continued, is gravity doesn't care about ego. Tank grinned, spreading his arms. Teach me physics, Professor. Gladly. John produced a worn, sand-filled training bag from the SUV and set it on Tank's palms. Hold for 30 seconds. Elbows locked. No stepping back. Tank grabbed it. It looked easy. It never is. The crowd started counting. 1, 2. Pain sneaks in quietly, John said conversationally, as if he were describing rain. You don't notice until it owns your breath. At 20, Tank's wrists shook. At 24, he stepped back over the chalk. Twice, John sighed. Regret. Snickers drifted. Razor frowned. Mick's tone stayed friendly. We don't break things we don't need to, he said. We fix days. We keep kids from learning the worst parts of grown-ups. His eyes cut to Emma with the skateboard. You okay? Emma nodded, throat tight. Good. Mick faced Razor. So, clear the boardwalk. Apologize. Then we all drink Sophia's too-sweet coffee. And the ocean keeps being the ocean. Razor's jaw worked. Pride makes people heavy. Do you feel it in your chest when you're wrong but can't say it? He stepped toward Evelyn instead. I don't apologize to. Mick moved like a thought you almost had. He didn't touch Razor. He stepped into the space Razor needed to be tough. It vanished. Razor stalled, body confused by the missing stage. Mick's hands stayed open. John angled his hips, cutting Tank's line to Evelyn's chair without ever looking at him. Language matters, Mick said. So do choices. Razor blinked. Something ugly flickered in his eyes, then hardened. Nah. His fist rose sloppy and fast. Mick didn't punch. He simply turned Razor's wrist as if opening a stubborn jar and guided his momentum to empty space. Razor stumbled, air-stepping, then stopped at the chalk line. He froze, surprised not to be hurt. Mick's voice stayed calm. Last offer. A different siren now, closer. Patrol car. Lights stammering red-blue down sunbright wood. Sophia exhaled. 20 minutes, she whispered. As the cruiser rolled to a stop, Tank's gaze dropped to Evelyn's boots. Scuffed, strong, and something in him changed. He looked up and said, Wait, I know you. Tank's voice lost its swagger. Your cruise. Fallujah, right? The convoy that... Evelyn's face didn't change. A memory flared and passed. Sandstorm, radio static, her hand squeezing a tourniquet until her forearm went numb. The day the road opened and swallowed the lead vehicle. I was there, Tank said, quieter. Supply platoon. I saw you pull a kid out of a Humvee like he was your brother. Razor blinked. Thrown. You never told us you. Tank swallowed. Never talked about it. Evelyn's mouth warmed at the edges. Most don't. The officer stepped out, Robert's cousin, as it happened. Evelyn recognized the last name on the badge. Morning. We got a call. Everyone breathing. Mick nodded. All breathing. He tipped his cap toward Evelyn. One apology pending. Razor looked around and felt, for the first time, the cold edge of being alone in a crowd. The officer's pen weighted over his notebook. The C did what Cs do, refused to care who was important. Sophia poured coffee with hands that finally steadied. Emma shifted her skateboard under her arm. Mr. Delgado lifted his folded paper like a shield and then lowered it, shaking his head. Tank stepped to the chalk line, toes on respect. He faced Evelyn. Ma'am, I was out of line. I'm sorry. He stuck out a hand, not toward her chair, but toward Atlas. The dog sniffed, then leaned, accepting the truth of it. Dogs are never wrong about apologies. Evelyn met Tank's eyes. Thank you. Razor stared at Tank like he'd sprouted feathers. You serious? Tank's jaw set. Dead serious. We don't pick on our own. Or anyone. He turned to Razor. You owe her. Razor's nostrils flared. Pride again. Heavy. He flicked his gaze to the cop, to Mick, to the phone cameras blinking like patient stars. He took a breath that sounded like surrender with sand in it. To you, he told Evelyn, the words brittle. Sorry. Something unclenched in the air. The officer nodded. We good to clear the boardwalk? Mick looked to Evelyn, letting her own the answer. She scanned faces. The young, the old, the embarrassed, the relieved. We're good, she said. But before you go. She reached into the side pocket of her chair and pulled out a small, creased ribbon. Bronze color. The crowd leaned in. I don't wear medals on the pier, she said, voice low. I carry reminders. Of my team. Of the ones who didn't make it home. Of how heavy mornings can be. She offered the ribbon. Not the medal, just the ribbon, to Sophia, who caught her breath. For the coffee fund, Evelyn whispered. Make it sweeter for people on hard days. Sophia's eyes filled. Ev, just do it, Evelyn said, smiling. Razor looked at Tank, then at the ribbon, then at his own hands. He flicked his skull patch. It looked silly in the sunlight. Emma Hale touched a finger to the chalk line. Respect, she said softly. Regret. She looked up at Razor. You get to pick again tomorrow, you know? Silence. The kind that feels like a page turning. The bikers backed their bikes out of the way. Engines coughed to life, then settled. As they pulled away, Razor glanced once over his shoulder, not at Mick, not at the cop, at Evelyn. He lifted 2 fingers off the handlebar. Not a salute. Something else. Evelyn nodded once. Enough. Mick slid the chalk back into his pocket. Flag raising tomorrow at 0800, he told Evelyn. We've got a spot reserved if you want to lead it. Evelyn smiled at Atlas. What do you think, partner? Atlas wagged. Evelyn lifted her cap to wipe her brow, and the wind tugged it free, skipping it down the boardwalk toward the water. A figure at the rail caught it with one hand, Robert, and when he turned, there were tears on his face. I should have called sooner, he said. There's something you need to see. Robert held the cap like it was breakable. He was the one who replaced splintered planks, who patched storm damage, who always arrived first and left last. But his hands shook now. What is it? Evelyn asked. He stepped aside. A row of small flags ran along the rail, fresh, not faded, each clipped to a thin wooden dowel, each with a name written in careful black marker. Names only those who served would recognize, or the people who loved them. Names that fit in a mouth like a pebble you couldn't swallow. Evelyn's breath hitched. You did this. Robert nodded. Emma's idea. He nodded at the teen with the skateboard, who blushed and shuffled her feet. We set them before sunrise. For you. And for them. Silence. Not empty. Full. Mick's crew lined the boardwalk, not at attention, just present. Sophia slid the ribbon into a jar on her cart, taped a handwritten note to it. Hard Day Coffee Fund. Tank and his bike crew idled at the far exit. They didn't leave yet. Not until they saw what would happen next. Evelyn rolled closer to the flags. Atlas matched her speed, shoulder to knee. The wind lifted hair off her temple. The ocean breathed in and out. She raised her cap and set it against her chest. Not the hand over heart you see in parades. The private gesture you make at 2 a.m. so nobody has to carry it but you. Say something? Sophia asked, wiping her cheeks with the back of her wrist. Evelyn nodded. She didn't clear her throat. She let the roughness stay. Some folks think strength is a shout, she said. I've learned it's a whisper that doesn't quit. She looked at Emma with the skateboard. Film this, she added. But don't film me. Film them. She tipped the brim at the names. Tell people what it costs to be casual with cruelty. Tell them what it buys us when we choose care. Emma lifted her phone. The screen caught flags, sunlight, the edge of the sea. Evelyn went on. Today wasn't about winning. It was about not losing ourselves. The dog stayed calm. The coffee kept pouring. The chalk line didn't move. She smiled. Neither did the ocean. Mick stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. We're hosting an adaptive surf day next weekend, he said softly. Boards, chairs, extra hands. You in? Evelyn glanced at Atlas, who panted happily, tongue lolling like a small flag. We're in. Robert cleared his throat. And I've got a line item in the pier budget now. Accessibility upgrades. Ramps that don't rattle. Wider aisles. We'll start this afternoon. Budget allow for free cinnamon? Sophia called. Robert half smiled. Maybe. Tank walked his bike back a few steps and stopped in front of Evelyn. He didn't look like a bad man or a good man. Just a man trying to be better than he was 20 minutes ago. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his skull patch and held it out. Trade you, he said, for a promise. What's the promise? That if I forget who I am again, someone draws a chalk line. Evelyn took the patch. Deal. He fastened it to the jar beside the ribbon. 2 stories stitched together. Everyone watched it happen, like watching a knot tie itself. The officer tipped his cap and left. The bikers rolled out, slower this time. The crowd dissolved into sunlight and errands and plans. Evelyn lifted her face to the wind. Atlas, she murmured. He leaned into her shin. Ready to go home? He wagged and then, because dogs know timing, licked a tear from the corner of her mouth she didn't know had been there. You know that feeling, when a hard morning ends softer than it began. Silence. A good one. Evelyn placed her cap back on, spun her chair with a small, practiced push, and started toward the ramp that creaked less than it used to. People moved. The boardwalk opened. The ocean kept being the ocean. Sophia called after her. Tomorrow at 0800? Evelyn raised a hand. I'll lead. Now a question for you, the kind that sits with you all day. When someone draws a chalk line in front of you, respect on one side, regret on the other, which way do you step and why?